Marvelous hello, friends and loved ones! How are you today? So, a couple of years ago on this channel, I decided to cover one of my favorite fighting game series from when I was a kid. And I figured now was as good a time as any to unleash my inner beast and finally sink my teeth into the sequel. That's right, folks, today, we're looking at Bloody Roar 2.
The New Breed.
Yeah. That. Bloody Roar, the video game series responsible for creating more furries than any other. Except Sonic. And Star Fox. And Disney. And probably Space Jam. A lot of things suddenly make sense to me. So for those of you that don't know about Bloody Roar, go watch the video I did on the first one. Okay, fine. It was a series of fighting games created by Hudson, where the main mechanic was that all of the fighters were special beings known as zoanthropes, humans that are capable of turning into humanoid animal forms. In their animal forms, fighters are stronger, can regain some health, and have access to a large variety of new attacks. But in their human forms, they can die faster. But you can only transform if you have enough energy, and while transformed, getting hit will deplete it. Between Bloody Roar 1 and 2, Hudson made a lot of changes to the cast, with only 4 out of the 8 original playable characters returning for the sequel. Naturally, leading the pack, we've got our wolf boy, Hugo. Alex the rabbit schoolgirl has grown up to become a nurse, Long the tiger is apparently a little more okay with his powers now, and Gatto the French lion man is about the same. Not returning are Fox the Fox, no loss there, Mitsuko the Boar, with the story mode actually giving a reason why she's not here, apparently she got kidnapped, Bakuryu the old man ninja mole, some of you may remember he got turned into a can of Surge at the end of the first game, and Greg the gorilla, who is either very happy with his life and leading a successful circus, or more likely he's probably dead. But don't worry, because Bloody Roar 2 fills out its roster with a grand total of 11 characters! Look, this was 1999 on the PlayStation 1. That was kind of a big deal at the time. So for the new characters, first we've got Uriko, the final boss from the first game, joining the roster. While in the original game she turned into a sexy green-haired version of herself, and then that. In this game she's referred to as a half-beast, which sounds a little bit better than disappointing cat. There's also a new Bakuryu, with this one being a pretty boy anime teenager. I guess they thought this was a better path to take than the 70-year-old man. He's still a mole though, which I will never not find to be a hilarious combination. Ninja mole. I love it. Gatto's adopted daughter Sheena is a leopard and apparently exists. No idea where she was in the first game, especially since this game even states she's been fighting alongside her dad since she was a kid. Stun the Insect is a former Tylon scientist who unwittingly contributed to the zoanthrope experiments from the first game. When he tried to quit and take his research with him, he was kidnapped and experimented on to become a beetle-like zoanthrope. And unfortunately for him, it messed his normal human body up pretty badly. And the one who conducted these experiments was Busuzima, a crazy, green-haired Japanese scientist in a Hawaiian shirt that looks more like he'd be delivering pizzas in California than performing genetic experiments. But his animal form is a chameleon, and like first game Bakuryu, I find myself very drawn to this game's villain character because he's insanely fun. Even if he does do this when he wins.
You win.
Could have done without the Grundle shot, dude. Then there's Shenlong. Like Long, he's a tiger, and like Long, he's like Long, and like Long's tiger, Shenlong is also a tiger, but, you know, he's like a different tiger. And lastly, there's Jenny, a femme fatale in a tight dress who turns into a bat. But you may notice something just a little bit different about her animal form compared to some of the other characters. Go on, see if you can see it. What is it with Japan and the sexy bats? Like the first Bloody Roar, there's an arcade mode where you play through 7 random fights and then a final boss. With more characters this time around, I figured they'd have found a way to take mirror matches out of the equation, but here we go! Nope. The final boss is always Gato, and completing arcade mode with any character will unlock Gato as a playable fighter for all modes. But there is another. A task that I found most frustrating. The vast majority of my time with this game was spent trying to accomplish this singular goal. See, if you beat arcade mode without using any continues, after fighting Gato, you'll have one more special boss fight against Shenlong, and if you beat him, you'll unlock him. Sadly, the no continues thing also applies to Shenlong's fight, so even if you do get to him, you only get one shot, do not miss a chance to blow. And you're doing that all over again. Maybe I'm just way suckier at Bloody Roar than I thought I was, but this took me a lot longer than it should have. And even when I did win, I didn't feel good about it, but I was so happy it was over that I didn't care. Look, I'm not a completionist or anything, but I kind of feel like have all characters is a crucial part of videos like this. One of my gripes with arcade mode is that it feels sort of lackluster compared to the first game. I liked the cutscene endings from the first Bloody Roar, and I sort of understand why they took them out, more on that in a little bit. It just makes arcade mode feel less fulfilling. Like, even when I beat the secret ending and unlocked Shenlong, the game didn't even acknowledge it. I just had him. But one thing I do really love about this game is the narrator saying the name and animal of the fighters before the match. No matter what he's saying, he always tries to sound so dark and serious, except for some reason he eases up a lot when he says the word rabbit.
Alice the rabbit.
Like, compared to the others, he may as well go,
You go the wolf, Alice the
Fluffy Wuffy Bun Bun. The reason why arcade mode feels stripped down is because Bloody Roar 2 has a proper story mode this time around, with each character having their own Saturday morning cartoon show inspired title and a quest to go on that will lead them into several fights. The overarching premise of Bloody Roar 2 is that 5 years after the takedown of Tylon in the first game, the existence of zoanthropes became public knowledge, and so normal humans quickly grew to hate and fear them. It's X-Men. But a group of zoanthropes came together and formed the ZLF, the Zoanthrope Liberation Force, who would work hard and show the world all the good that zoanthropes can. It's X-Men. Except the ZLF is actually a front, and they're all terrorists who believe that zoanthropes are the future master race, and they seek to either wipe out humanity or turn everyone into one of them. It's Magneto. The best way I can talk about the story in this game is to go back to what I said about it being a Saturday morning cartoon show. The speed at which these characters go back and forth is so outrageous that it reminds me a lot of stuff like Speed Racer. It's all told through static images and text, and these characters turn on each other at the drop of a hat. If anyone even hints that the random stranger they just encountered at the ZLF headquarters might be a ZLF member, they get so offended that they just fight. Or sometimes no one even has to say anything. It's literally just two people who see each other and someone busts out their inner Bobby Hill.
I don't know you!
What is it with zoanthropes and just having the worst communication skills? Wait, am I allowed to say that? Is that offensive? I know there would be no game if they did this, but like 90% of these fights could have been avoided with, "No, I'm not one of them." Oh, okay, wanna work together? Cool! It's just made even funnier when you consider the fact there's no music or voice acting or anything. So aside from reading the delightfully cheesy dialogue, the only sound you'll hear is this electricity sound they play between text. Basically, every character's story is a different take on accomplishing the same goal. At the end of the first game, it's revealed that Yugo saved a young zoanthrope boy with amnesia whom he named Kenji. Kenji is actually the new Bakuryu. So when Busuzima kidnaps him, Yugo goes to save him, ends up beating up Busuzima and taking down the ZLF. Alice wants to go save Yugo, and to do so ends up beating up Busuzima and taking down the ZLF. Sheena wants to find Gato because there's a rumor he might be the leader of the terrorist organization, so to find out the truth, she ends up beating up Busuzima and taking down the ZLF. Oriko wants to save Mitsuko, who was kidnapped, ends up beating up Busuzima and taking down the ZLF. Stun, wanting revenge on Busuzima for causing his hideous form, ends up beating up Busuzima and taking down the ZLF. Are you starting to see the pattern here? Even Busuzima's story ends with everyone beating up Busuzima and taking down the ZLF. It's actually one of the funnier endings, and it even breaks the fourth wall for a bit. Some character stories are less interesting than others. Like, since Bakuryu spends his entire story mode brainwashed, his story mode is literally just him defeating anyone who comes to him. Then he shakes off the brainwashing, beats up Busuzima, and takes down the ZLF. Since the character of Jenny is that she has no character and is just a sexy agent, she shows up in most people's story and just gives information to them to tell them what they should do. In her story mode, it's revealed that she was hired by Gato to help guide the Zoanthropes into taking down the ZLF. I like that this explains what her deal is, but it just means nearly her entire story mode is just slightly altered scenes from other characters' stories. Until Jenny ends up beating up Busuzima and taking down the ZLF. Obviously. Long's story is arguably one of the more interesting ones to me. At the end of the first game, he became a hermit and sealed himself away because he hates being a zoanthrope. But in this game, he's pulled out of hiding by Uriko after she comes to him telling him that the leader of the ZLF that defeated her mom looks like him, and she begs him to take her on as his pupil. Even with hating his powers, Long can't just sit idly by knowing some evil clone of him is out hurting people. So he conquers his personal demons in order to do the right thing, helping to train Uriko and stopping Shenlong. Which to me makes Long way better protagonist material than Yugo, because seriously, Yugo is a jerk! And after beating up Busuzima and taking down the ZLF, Long tells Gato that he's going to retire again, but this time, instead of just being a hermit in the mountains, he's just gonna be a dude, living in a city, like normal people. You know, until Bloody Roar 3, that is. In fact, the only character whose story doesn't involve beating up Busuzima and taking down the ZLF is Gato, since the story acts as though someone else already took care of those things by the time his story mode takes place. In other character stories, Gato is usually the final fight, with him showing up at the very end to be like, "Hey, you've got the potential to do this thing, but you should totally fight me to prove it." And so Gato's story is basically just a series of those with every character at the end of their own stories, with his quest ending with him giving a big Professor X type speech about how zoanthropes are still human, and we can all work together to build a better world. And lastly, we have Shenlong's story, Reincarnation. No! Stop that! Anyway, what's his whole deal, you may have been asking throughout this video? Well, the short and simple version of it is this. Busuzima cloned Long for some reason, and so that he could control everything from the safety and comfort of his lab, decided to make the clone, Shenlong, the official leader of the ZLF, even though he's still just Busuzima's puppet. Unfortunately, nobody bothered to tell Shenlong that he was a clone, so when he interacts with Long and learns the truth, he doesn't take it well. I guess ripping open your own stomach is a good way to deal with... Look, we all have our own coping mechanisms. At the end of each character's story mode, the game quickly recaps what the characters go and do. Yugo helps create a brighter future for zoanthropes. Alice dedicates herself to being a nurse. Stun basically becomes the Punisher, except he eats people. You know, normal stuff. And that's basically the meat of Bloody Roar 2's single-player stuff. There are some cool things you can unlock by playing that you can use in custom battles, like big head mode, big arms, or even kid mode, which just looks weird. These are fun little extras that may be good for a laugh if you ever do play the game with friends. So, where do I stand on Bloody Roar 2? While I do miss some of the characters from the first game, the sequel's increased roster size and the addition of a story mode I think makes it overall the better game. The graphics and music haven't improved too much from the first title, but that's fine because I still think the game looks and sounds good. At least by PS1 standards. I mean, Sheena could serve cheese at a party with that hair. Bloody Roar 2 is everything that made the first game stand out as a fun, interesting fighting game, and then some more. And if I haven't convinced you to play it, maybe another weird live-action Bloody Roar commercial will.
Everyone, let's encourage Jimmy to unleash the beast within. Very good. I think we've had a breakthrough.
Nut boy.